In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Anker SOLIX F3800 Plus. Now, you may have seen in a past video where we did a review of its predecessor, the F3800. This one has some awesome new features that I'm going to talk to you about, and we're going to show you how to use this in a real-life application powering your gas furnace. And we're going to show you some really cool features about this that make it to where if you are gone, this will be able to power your furnace and you won't even have to think about it, and it makes it really easy. Now, before we get into the specifics on this power station, I just want to mention the awesome sales that Anker is doing in the 2025 spring sale. So make sure and watch the whole video to see what features you like about this, and then check out the video description at the end where you can see where all those deals can be found. With that, let's get right into it. Okay, so as far as the looks of this unit, it pretty much looks exactly the same as its predecessor, the F3800. However, there are a few new features that I'm going to show you. To turn on our display, we'll simply hold the on button there for a few seconds, and then that will pop up just the same as it used to. There is a mobile app that makes this really nice to, in the event of an emergency situation, if this does kick on and it's giving power, it will give you a notification if you have that set to the on position, and that's a really nice thing to have. Now, going right into the differences of this unit, previously we had a 220 volt 50 amp plug here. This is reduced now to a 120 volt 25 amp plug, and then we do still have a 240 volt plug here, and you can do pass-through charging, which is what's different about this. Everything else is the same, and we're going to do a few tests here in just a moment to see if we can have this plugged into the wall to where when it's under normal use, this will keep this maintained, and have it plugged into our gas furnace. Now, this is something that I'll get into a bit more detail in just a minute, but really fascinating and really easy to do for this particular application. Now, the other thing that's different is this right here. So these are solar adapters. These will run right to a solar panel, and instead of only going up to whatever the previous amount was, now you can see we can go all the way up to 165 volts. Which is a significant jump up from the previous model. This was something that a lot of people requested, and they made that adjustment. Now, down here, we also have a generator plug. So we can plug this into a generator with the right adapters here. And then we can also do the same thing with an external battery. These both have the same plugs here. We can do the same thing if we want to upsize the capacity of how much battery usage we will be able to use. Now, in terms of the functionality of this unit, I love how it's designed basically like a suitcase design. So you simply bump up this handle. You can then use it on two wheels like this. You can roll over gravel. I will say it is significantly more difficult to go over gravel, obviously, than a soft surface. This is also designed with these pads here. So if you want to have it in this position, you can also. It's kind of designed for that, but I normally just leave it in the upright position, and you can roll it to wherever your furnace is. So getting into the fun part of this experiment, let's just talk for a moment about this guy right here. So this is different than what you'll see probably if you go down to your furnace. You'll probably just see a light switch, and the bad thing is there's no way to get power to your furnace in the event of an emergency. So if you just have a light switch, you're kind of up a creek when the power goes out. But this, all it does is, this is just a plug. This will never be live under any circumstances, you know, when it's unplugged like this. This is essentially just like a toaster oven or a microwave or a TV. This just allows power to go to the furnace. And this is just like a regular outlet. There's nothing on the backside. We simply use this as a mounting location. So for all intents and purposes, this could very well just be like a regular outlet like this. So you can imagine this just mounted on a wall, and this would simply plug in. So when the power goes out, there's nothing going to this. We simply unplug it, and we plug it into our power station. Now, I'll link this at the end of this video if you want to see how to do it. It's quite easy, and only costs about 20 bucks to make this upgrade. I love it. So at any rate, we're going to plug this into the power station here. Okay, so we've got that plugged into our power station. The display is on. We're at 100%. Now, to get power to any of this, we're simply going to press this button, and that's going to energize this whole section. Okay, so now that that's on, we have our gas connected. This is a demo furnace, so this is obviously not up to code, and the vent is just venting outside there. But I just want to show you how this works in a normal situation. So now that this is powering the gas furnace is in turn powering our thermostat. So we're just going to go over here to heat, bump it up to 70, and immediately we heard our inducer turn on. I'm going to take the front cover off of this to show you what's going on inside the furnace. The first thing that'll happen is the inducer will turn on. That is the fan that pulls the exhaust fumes out of the burner assembly. The next thing that's going to happen is the hot surface igniter is going to come on, which you can see right there. And then the next thing is our gas valve will turn on, sending gas in, and we'll have ignition. And while this is running, we can see how many watts we're pulling. 138 watts. That's with the hot surface igniter. And we should have ignition in just a second. There we go. All right, so our hot surface igniter turned off. We're down to about 80 watts there. And here in about 30 seconds of running this, getting the heat exchanger nice and hot, the fan will then turn on, and we'll notice our wattage go up as the fan turns on. Okay, our fan just came on. We hopped up to 244 watts. So that's going to be the watt that this is going to continuously draw as our gas furnace is on. So we have a bunch of hot air coming out of our vents. This would now be conditioning our space completely off of this. Again, our grid power is completely unplugged. So in the event that power comes back to this outlet, there's no harm, no foul. Now, what we're going to do now is plug this into our charging port. So nothing is ever going to go back to here, but when this does become live again, it will simply start charging our battery back up, and nothing will have changed in our mind aside from this telling us, okay, we're on backup power. So let's go ahead and bump this off. And that heats up fast. So we're going to turn this off, and we're going to plug our extension cord in from the power source here, from the grid power, to our charging port, which is right here. Okay, so we have our plug going from our outlet to the charging port of our power station, and this is plugged in. Or we could also plug in our solar panels that will actively be charging this battery and keep it topped off. Now you can see we're at 100%, we're pulling 0 watts, and now we press this button. And again, this is simply plugged in from the furnace to one of these 110 plugs. We turn that button on, and as soon as we do that, our thermostat is already set to, I think, 72 degrees. And there we go. Our furnace just came on, and this is all going through the grid and through this power station. So we can see we're plugged in here. At this rate, we would be able to run for 22.9 days. We can see what our input is, 130, what our output. This is just going to match. So it's basically going through this unit right now because it's topped off. Our furnace just kicked on. We've got ignition. Our input is saying 80 watts. Output is 74. So blower just came on. We're inputting 240 watts, outputting 240. So we're going through this and keeping it charged. Now notice what happens if we unplug from the grid. So we're simply going to unplug this outlet while I'm showing you right here. Notice what happens. Nothing happened. Our furnace stayed on. This is now completely on backup power, and it'll show you how many hours or days this will be able to function. Now this is saying this will run it for 10 hours at 244 watts, but the reality is if you're running your gas furnace to keep your home warm, you can lower that temperature to, say, 65 degrees, whatever the lowest is manageable, to allow it to run for the longest period. and your gas furnace is going to cycle on and off. So this number is not going to be accurate. This is going to say if it's running for 10 straight hours, it's going to, that's all it's going to do at 240 watts. But if this is cycling on and off, this will probably more likely be, you know, double that or even more. So we're going to simulate grid power coming back on. We're going to plug this back in. And as you can see, nothing has changed. We have now input here and output there, or vice versa. So really cool. You can just leave this down in your basement or have it plugged into your furnace, passing through it, and this will automatically turn on as soon as the power goes out. Now let's say, for instance, that the power goes out. I get an email every time my power goes out here in Salt Lake City, and for whatever reason this button wasn't pushed and it's not getting power. So as soon as I get that email, I can go into the app, turn it on manually if I'm not there, and it will automatically go back to whatever setting your thermostat is set to. That's automatically what it will go back to. Now I want to demonstrate this. Now don't do this very often, but if you simply unplug the furnace, it's as if the power just went out. It's not going to wait for your furnace to turn off. But if you're doing this yourself, I don't recommend doing what I just did, but I'm just showing this to you so I can show you that the thermostat will revert back to whatever it was set to, even when power is lost at the thermostat. So since I just unplugged this, the C wire is now not giving power to my Google Nest thermostat, and it was set to 72 degrees before. So I'm going to give this a few minutes and come back and show you what the screen is showing once the residual power has been lost here. And once we restore power, I'll show you that it'll go right back to 72 degrees here. Okay, so it's been a few minutes and now the thermostat is saying the power from your equipment to the thermostat may be off. So this is as if no power is getting to this. Okay, there we go. It even says we can't do anything because there's no power. So it's going to shut down just to recharge the batteries, which is totally okay in the event of an emergency power outage. So now we're going to plug this back into our power station. Our AC button is still on, and look at that, it turns on. This automatically went back to 72 degrees as soon as that power was restored. So if this was in your home application, this would automatically trigger the power station to come on and warm your home back up to whatever temperature that's set to. The other beautiful part is that if the power goes out and your Ecobee is sending you notifications, I know I have an Ecobee and then this Google Nest in the garage, it will send me a notification saying something is up with your system, it hasn't turned on for an hour, and that gives you an indication that we either need to remotely power this on or physically go there and see what's going on. But 99% of the time, this UPS is going to automatically kick in. If you have it set up like this, you can totally leave it down there by your furnace. It will keep a charge with the grid and then automatically power your furnace when the grid power is lost. So really cool feature of the Anker SOLIX F3800 Plus. They have some really awesome deals going on with this particular power station, so I'll make sure and leave a link in the video description. I think these are fantastic because you can keep this in the home and power critical items like your gas furnace, and you don't have to run a noisy generator in the event of a big emergency, and keeping others awake, not to mention others will be privy to where your generator is. So I think this is a great solution if you just want to keep the essentials running and you don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars getting solar so that you can be prepared in the event of an emergency. Now I'm just curious here to plug in some additional items and see, we already reached our 72 degree threshold that quickly with this tiny garage. I'm going to bump this back on just to get that furnace back up and running so it's pulling wattage here. And I'm also going to turn this electric heater on. This will pull 1500 watts in the highest setting. So we're going to turn this on and see what difference that makes. So that bumped it up to 320 watts. Our hot surface igniter is on. We're gonna bump this to 1500, or excuse me, 1300. So in total, we're pulling 1500, no problem. Got tons of heat coming out here. Bump it up one more notch. 1600. So worst case scenario, if you had to have some of these electrical heaters, you could definitely run them. It definitely pulls way more watts than if you have access to your gas furnace. So that just emphasizes the difference in these two heat sources. As you can see, it doesn't like going through the gravel, but it does. We're gonna roll this over to our solar powered air conditioner, and we're gonna plug it into our solar panels up on the roof and just see what it shows on our display here. All right, so we're back over here out by our AC unit. We're gonna plug this in again. So it looks like 300 and was showing over 300, dropped down. Now it's showing 350 again. So we could recharge this up in 2 hours with our solar. So if we had this plugged in as well as our grid power, so that when the grid does go down, the solar can take over, this can be an awesome thing to have. And just for reference, this is how many panels I have on my roof. They're not permanent panels, they're just temporary foldable panels. And you can also just put those panels in your yard where you have direct sunlight and achieve the same thing. So this can be a really super versatile machine to have. And I'm really impressed with this machine, the way it functions, how it can act as a UPS to where it can automatically back up, and being able to use the app to control it virtually from anywhere is also really cool. As we said, Anker has a really nice app that has a really nice interface. So we can just select this, we can see that the unit is charging there. And if we have this running in a loop, so say right now this is plugged into grid power, say on the other side here, we're plugged into our easy generator switch and the power goes out, we usually get an email here that says, okay, your power is out through Rocky Mountain Power. I would simply open this up if I was not at home, turn on power to this outlet, and that would instantly restore and basically give me 2 days, or depending on what the temperature is set to, possibly even more days of runtime, and all at the click of a button on my smartphone. Now, once again, this is probably one of the best upgrades I can recommend on your gas furnace. If you haven't done this yet, I highly recommend doing it. And if you want to see the full installation video of this, you can find it right here. And until next time, you guys be safe. Later.